Hi, this is Bookish Talk. This year we decided to return to our series dedicated to bookbinders making bindings for the shortlisted books of the Booker Prize. And the first person we decided to talk to is Mark Cockram. So we hope Mark will, tell us some secrets about his binding. Hi, Mark.
Hi, it's good to see you both again. I don't know if I've got any secrets, really. To be honest with you, I wasn't meant to be doing it this year.
Here is one secret already.
so, I mean, it's just one of those little things. I mean, basically, what it is, if you're chosen to be a man booker or a booker binder, as you've got to have a second. Like jeweling, you've got to have a second, just in case something happens to you. Now, in the years gone by, I was, and I think I can name names. Actually, I think I can name names. I hope. I was asked by Lester Capon, who is now the president of Designer Bookbinders, if I would be his second, and I, of course, I said yes. Of course I would, thinking he won't need me. He's a professional. He knows what he's doing. Anyway. Couple of weeks into the 4 or 5 weeks that we have, this little bubble that we have, got a phone call from him and said, Mark, I went, hi, Lester, how's it going? He said, this is before the internet, it's all on the phone. I'm talking on the phone. He said, got a small problem. I said, oh dear, sorry to hear that. He said, can you do some teaching for me at the college that I teach at? And I went, why? He said, because I've chopped the tip of my finger off and it's slowing all my work down. And I won't be able to finish the book, you see. So I said,
no surprises here.
so I said, I stood up. I said, as your second, I will do this. I will do this for you, Lester. I'll do this for you.
What an honourable man.
And contrary to as many would think, yes, I do what I say. Anyway, so I did 2 sessions of teaching, 2 evenings, 1 evening a week. I did it all like that. Absolutely fantastic. His book was beautiful. He went to the meal and everything. And do you know, he still hasn't paid me for those 2 nights teaching. And I'm not bitter in any way. I'm not, don't get me wrong, but, a little bit of a distaste, rather like Nescafe coffee. Anyway, so pre-booker, names are drawn out of a hat, not me. I get a phone call from Lester. He said, Mark, I said, yes, Lester. I was actually on the computers. He said, would you like to be my second? And I said, Lester, I'd be delighted. Nothing's going to go wrong this time, is it? All right. So anyway,
well, there are only 10 fingers on your hands,
well, he's more like that, actually. But, he's a professional. So, anyway, the announcement's made, the shortlist comes out. 2 days later, I get an email from Lester saying, Mark. And I'm thinking, oh no, he said, I'm not going to be able to do it. Can you do this year's Booker for me? I went, oh, not again. I've got life planned. I'm going to have to put everything on hold. So basically, I wasn't expecting to do it this year. So it was a big surprise. And Lester still owes me. But anyway, it was lovely to be able to do it. And it was a great book. But it's put everything else back slightly. But that's, we'll get things sorted out. That's no problem. But that's, if there is one secret, that's the secret.
Did you read the book in advance?
No, because I didn't think, when nobody knows which book they're going to get until the shortlist comes out. And then what happens is you're notified which one you've got, and they say, your text block, because the text is specially printed. It's not the run-of-the-mill shop thing. It's specially printed, good quality paper, etc., etc., etc. And you're posted a reading copy of it. And sometimes, the post can be a little bit, so, the clock's ticking, so you run out and buy a reading copy, and then you read it. You don't read it once, you read it twice, 3, 4, 5 times, because you're using that text, that script, those words that coming out of the page as your inspiration for the binding. And unlike working on other books where Shakespeare, for example, he's dead. You know, he's not going to complain, is he? No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. But usually with the booker, what you're doing is on the presentation evening, you're sitting next to your author. Television cameras are there and you're like that, black tie, beautiful. And you've got to, you know, you can't just turn any old rubbish out and then say, what is this design? You said, can't you tell? You've got to, it's got to resonate, it's got to mean something. And it's got to, you know, and you've got to be honest with it. You can't do a bit of abstract stuff and say, well, can't you understand? That's abstraction of art. And, you know, it doesn't work like that. So you've really got to understand it and the nuances and everything else. And then you start the design process. And I'm a bit naughty with my reading copy because I actually draw on the cover, sort of initial designs and things. Also, I pick up text and things that are important that I think are sort of relevant to the, or not relevant.
Do you usually keep the reading copy or should you return it?
They haven't asked for any back from me, and I don't know why. In the 12 or so years that I've been doing this,
maybe they asked from Leicester.
Well, yeah, his will be a virgin copy. Yeah, but so that's the process. So, you know, it's one of those little known facts that you when you're doing it, you've got to have a second, and they've got to be a fellow of Designer Bookbinders as well, and you've got to make sure they're sort of okay with it. So, of course, I had to get a second as well. Fortunately, quite a number of my past students are now fellows, so I was able to twist somebody's arm, and they had to agree. And that's the beauty of being a teacher. And yeah, it was great. Really enjoyed it. It was 4 or 5 weeks of stop your life, do this. Yeah, it was actually quite a nice book. I mean, I'll be honest with you, it wouldn't be the book that I choose myself to read. Wouldn't. But it was very easy to get into. It's very much about today's age, about the use of the internet and communication and stuff. I'm not going to give a spoiler because it's, you know, it's quite a, you know, some of it I did actually laugh at, some of it I did cry at. And I'm not a critic, you know, I'm not one of these people doing. And so it was quite a good read, but the one constant all the way through it was the communication by text on the phone or internet or whatever it was, and how much rubbish there is out there in the world, and how you have to, you know, pick your way through this minefield and all sorts of things. So yeah, it's quite interesting. I did actually quite enjoy doing it.
Is there a difference in how you normally read a book and how you read a book when you look for a visual metaphor?
It's a very good question. If I'm working with an existing text block, then yeah, I do like to read it to find those stepping stones for the design. Sometimes the design happens very, very quickly. For example, with my binding of Clockwork Orange, I knew I wanted something very visceral because I'd read it before as a kid. I'd read it in my early 20s. I'd seen the film, though the film has got not so much in common with the book, but that's always the way. So I already had these ideas bubbling away in the back. And with Clockwork Orange, it was very much, right, I know what I'm doing. I can do this and I can do that. Whereas with the Booker, I hadn't read it before. I've got no preconceptions. So I really do have to look at it and read it and really try and find that theme. I suppose it's like a landscape artist or any artist, still life, portraiture or whatever. You really have to look at the subject that you're painting or you're carving and that sort of thing. And you really have to draw out of it. Whereas a sculptor will look at a block of stone and they will see within that stone or that wood or whatever it is, they will see the form. With a book, I have to chisel away a little bit to begin to see that form developing. And then I see the form in the book, as it were. So yeah, it's visual metaphors, all sorts of things happening, yeah. But as you'll see from the design, some of it was so easy for me to pick up on because there are icons involved in it and all sorts of things. And I think it'll be the only time that you'll see a fish and John Wayne dressed as Genghis Khan on the cover of the book at any one time. There's a little hint of what was going on in my mind.
No. Could you perhaps show us your process? Like, surely you started with some drawings and then.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I've got my sketchbook somewhere. Yeah, my sketchbook. Yeah, hang on. Almost as if it's been planned. This is my sketchbook for a bit there, a little bit of a handmade.
Oh, you are into handmade.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and I've got all my fingers. Anyway, so and basically what I did some very quick rough sketches of sort of where I wanted to go with it. But what I was trying to trying to avoid seeing what's on other pages because it could be damaging to my reputation. But so the very initial quick sketches, and then it sort of formulates in the mind because with this particular book, I was working very much on the book. I knew that I wanted to do something, and I knew that the idea I wanted to use the text that's in the book, but it was how I would use text and how I would do stuff. So I spent quite a lot of time just experimenting and pottering around the studio, which unfortunately I don't have any images or whatever of seeing how I could, do stuff, printing. So I was, going through trays of type, blocking, hand tooling, and all sorts of things. And then it sort of occurred to me that what I could do, and which would fit in really nicely with this, is to ditch all of that sort of traditional way of working, perhaps, and use something that's a little bit, sort of more this century, maybe. And that was to do collaging. So that's cutting out individual letters from publications. Sounds very easy, but seriously, just try it and do a whole cover of a book in it with the clock ticking. It's not that easy, actually. So, it was all tweezer work and minuscule and magnifying glasses.
You start to appreciate the craft of blackmailers, I guess, at that moment.
There is a skill to it, most definitely. Plus also, I didn't have to worry about forensics, adhesive type, wherever, publications or anything. So I was, this is one of the things nowadays, because again, so much is done online, that publications are becoming rarer, not rarer and rarer, but I don't have as many. And so, with COVID and everything, and things have changed. I couldn't just go to my dentist or my doctor and say, look, see that packed pile of old magazines in the waiting room? Yeah. Can I have those? Because they're not there anymore. So I was sort of looking around the studio, publications of this and the Woman's Realm 1976, for example. And I don't know where I got that from. And all sorts of things. So it was very much, getting this together and then starting work on it. So it was, the design came quite quickly. The application of the design took a long, long time. It would have been so much easier for me to have just, loaded up the old blocking machine with some type, done, no problem at all. Full leather binding, done. But that wouldn't, for me, that wouldn't be right. And also there's the physical texture of the collage work as well. And the rhythm of, the different size letters and that sort of thing. And also because of the way I've placed the letters, it's not easy to understand. You've got to really look at it, find little keys, and then you can follow the text. I suppose it's similar to as asthmatic, whatever it is, writing. Yeah. I'm sure somebody will write in and say, what you really mean is But I'll go, thank you very much.
We're not as popular on YouTube as of now, so there are not so many angry comments
good.
under the videos.
But
that's
this
fantastic.
video is not going away, so it will choose you for the rest of your life.
The rest of my life. It's a burden I'll have to carry for the rest of my life, and I'm prepared to do that. no. And so that, and that's it. But there's also, you know, it's the typical things, you know, you've got to fold the sheets. You've got to make the text block. You've got to do the edge decoration, the embanding, you know, and everything else. And I hand dye my leather. So it's not just a question of, you know, bish, bash, bosh. It has to be done correctly. And I think you'll see in the series of the, you know, BookBinders work, there's some exquisite, beautiful work done there. And there's a few in particular. And you think, well, how did you find the time? Did you sleep? You know, this sort of thing. And this is as well as the ordinary ongoing stuff that's happening in the studio. It's not just working on the one book. For somebody like me, it's right. You know, I've got students coming in today, or I've got that customer collecting that work in 4 days' time. I've got to get it finished. So you're playing this time game, and you know, as the hands of the clock get closer, sweat starts getting heavier, and then you remember you've got to make a box for it. And you think, and again, you can't just throw something together and hope it's going to be okay, because I mean, you know, it's part of the author's award. It's part of their package of prize, if you like, and it's got to be done, and you do not fail it. You've got to get it done.
So how do you hide it from your students and other visitors while you're working on this secret project?
This secret project, this ultra secret project. Well, my students are well versed that I have many secrets, and that they know
where to look.
Yeah, then it's an open studio, nothing's hidden. You know, you've been it. And there is this essence of being professional about it. You say, look, I'd love to be. Usually what I do is I post work in progress on the various media sites and stuff. This year we weren't allowed to. You know, they wanted to make a big thing of it. And my students, you know, I share with my students what I'm doing. You know, I'm doing this, and this is my design, this is what I'm working on, and this is how I'm doing it. So for them, it's part of their, you know, the learning experience, if you like. And they respect that, you know, please no photographs, etc., etc., etc. So that's fine. And, you know, hopefully we're all of an adult nature-ish, and to, you know, to get that sorted out. As far as customers coming in, I'm tucked away in a little sort of side mews in a very small part of London. I don't get people coming to the studio. You know, occasionally there'll be this tentative knock at the door and say, are you the dressmaker? And you go, I've got 2 huge signs outside saying bookbinder. The dressmaker's next door, you know, come on. But yeah, so yeah, if a client or somebody comes in, then it's just put to one side and drawn out whenever. So yeah.
And what is the text on the card? Because at first I thought that they were random words, not even all of them words, but then I saw that they do mean something.
Yes, they do. Well done. Basically what it is the text that's in the text block that is coming in from phones and stuff. There are specific examples where, you know, she says, you know, her mother, sending a text to her mother. This is the author, of course, is Patricia Lockwood, and the title of the book I was doing is No One Is Talking About This. It's a book in 2 halves, but anyway, but basically there was stuff that would come in on the internet, and you know, and I quote, if I may, never send me the eggplant again, Mom, she texted. I don't care what you're cooking for dinner. So I thought, I love that line. That's lovely. So that was, I thought I can, all right, use that. But using these cut out letters, this ransom note sort of thing, I'm putting it in such a way as that you don't actually, as you've found out, it's not easy to read straight away. You've got to really look at it, and then you find the key, and then you're able to decipher the text, which is rather like the internet. We get bombarded every day with so much stuff that you've got to sort out what's important and what is not important. And so that's what I was drawing on as well. So again, it was that way of working, and there's great lines in here. So unfortunately I can't read out because some of them are a little adult, shall we say?
I think we crossed this river when we recorded our podcast with Richard Minsky, and in the beginning he was like, okay, I'll try to keep myself restrained, but then he just forgot about everything
and showed us a picture of his dick. You can
really? Yeah. Well, hey, if you bear with me one moment, I can... I don't. Crikey, that would be something else. Yeah. So it is. Quite seriously, it is quite an interesting read. Yeah, I mean, it goes on about how young people use text and how her enemies and emojis and stuff. That 3 drops of something and then 2 little teardrops mean something, and that her mother keeps sending this thinking it's sort of happy cry and it's not. It actually means masturbation. So it's quite funny. It really is, because I'm reading this and thinking, oh yeah.
I should probably delete the eggplant emoji from my mother's phone just in case. Yeah, I mean, it is. Yeah. Anyway, moving swiftly on. I really like how you describe this feeling of disorientation in the information flow in the internet, because I think the cover you made is also a bit like that, but visually. Those blocks of bright colors are a bit like ad banners. You're sort of reading the information you need, but you need to find it among others.
Exactly. And then there's this, the not so subtle use of imagery as well, which is just like pop-up images. And I wanted those coming out of the text as well. I mean, quite seriously, I mean, this is why, there's John Merrick, who's actually quite pivotal in this. But again, I'm not going to spoil it. John Wayne, the 2 people kissing in Times Square at the end of the American involvement in the Second World War. A fish.
DJ Day or one of the famous ones.
I think, yeah, it was. Yeah. And that sort of thing. So I wanted to because those images are stuck in my mind, and they're so iconic that not to use them would be silly, in my opinion. And again, why not use them? I mean, it's in the text blog. I can do that. But it was at times it was very much a labor of love, because you're saying I want a particular E. It's got to be lowercase. It's got to be serif, and flicking through magazines and saying it's too big, too small, wrong color, and you're going through it and you think I saw an E. There's an E somewhere, and the students just looking at me thinking, is this man on drugs? And I was thinking, where's an E? I need the E. And obviously what I've got English language. The majority of my publications are English language. And some of the text that I had to find was French. It's got accents, etc. So I'm thinking, I need accents. Where are they? Unfortunately, I had an old publication, Le Monde, a French newspaper. I was able to go through that, but I had to find the newspaper. Now, Stefan will testify. The studio is not the most organized of places in the world. I'm sure I've got one somewhere. It may take me a little bit of time to find it, but I will find it. So that sort of thing happening as well. So it was very interesting from that perspective.
Talking a bit about some technical stuff and technical process. Do you finish these pasted down letters in some way before the book is done, or they are just
the book, the edge decoration's done, the boards are attached, the leather's on, the doubleurs have been finished, the end papers have been finished. The last thing I'm doing is I'm putting the letters on. And so one cannot make a mistake. There's no sort, I didn't do it on a separate piece of paper and then stick that piece of paper on. It was actually all working on the book. The reason being is that obviously I had to control the movement within the board. And it's very easy to control movement with smaller pieces of paper when the book is, for me anyway, when the book is physically made, completed, because that way I don't have to worry about the boards pulling in or pulling out or anything. So, you know, you have to say, right, that's now going to be ready. I am now going to do this. And I've got 4 days left. And, you know, if you make that mistake, there's no sort of, oh, it's just a piece of paper, let's start again. It's, I do not make a mistake. This has to be correct. I have to do this.
And then once you finished it, did you cover it with some kind of lacquer or?
Oh, yes. Yes, I did. Yes, I covered it with frog juice initially. Now, are you familiar with frog juice? Aren't you?
Sounds like an ingredient for the witch's cauldron.
Now, frog juice. There's this very rare frog in the upper reaches of the Amazon. Okay, and it secretes out of little glands on its back and stuff a liquid which the indigenous population collect in little cups, and then this is used as a lacquer. It's very expensive stuff because it comes from the upper reaches of the Amazon. It's not really, no. What it is I'll find it. Hang on a second. Hang on. Frog juice. Come on, frog juice. Ah, there's some frog juice. Right. Get it in a big can.
Why frog juice? Is it
I've got no idea why it's called frog juice, but I just say there it is. It's frog juice. You can read that, yeah?
Yeah.
It's frog juice.
But are you a professional in using frog juice? There is a sign there that you have to be a professional.
You doubt me? Yes, I am. Yes, it says for professional use only, and I am a professional.
Is there a certificate for frog juice users?
No, do you want one? I can make one. But I am a professional frog juicer.
I read it differently. I read it as you should only use it professionally. I can imagine some very unprofessional uses for it.
Oh, yes. There is health and safety, very much so. And we have to do, it's got preparation for best results after completing each job. Always do a test piece, it says. But not only does it say that, but it also says it in German as well. So there you go. So, you know, it's very, very cool. And it can, big cans, very big cans. It's great stuff. It's quite, seriously, it's protective spray for digital prints. It's really, really good stuff. It's used by a lot of people and stuff. And then what I did is, that's to stabilize everything and give a first coat. So the paper stays, is sealed, so it's non-porous. Some of the papers were quite porous, you know, from publications. And then I got some artists' acrylic spray matte, obviously masking everything off, and just whacked that over and did that. So it's very much as an artist would work with a canvas. And that's the way I work with a lot of my collage stuff. Because that way the surface is sealed, and it's not like putting transparent parchment over it where it just smooths everything out. I really wanted this to have the texture, you know. That was part of the overall concept for the design. I've used a C word
because you still work with leather cover, and
yeah,
you probably don't want to lose the texture and the some sort of feeling of
yeah
cover.
I mean exactly. I mean the boards were edged in leather, the spines leather. You know, it's done, you know, sort of properly, as it were. But you know, it's just how I wanted to work and get it and just get that image and get that feeling for the text block over.
Was the box as finicky to make, or did you go for something more straightforward?
You know, this is one of the things about boxes. Boxes are the last thing to be made, but the first thing to be seen. And they are, if you like, the stage, the curtains of a production. You've got to get the box, you know, right. Its form and function. It's there for protection, identification, and it sets the scene. One always has these grandiose ideas for the box. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. It's going to be made out of this, and it's going to be done. At the end of the day, it's a box. It's going to get knocked and bumped, unless, of course, you make a protective box for the box.
And we know some people who do that.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on. And so I thought, just keep it simple. The box is not the important thing. The book is the important thing, but it just make it a nice frame. And it was just as one of my, I'm not going to say standard boxes, because of course nothing we do is standard. It's just a nicely made box with the title on in words, and it's nice and simple, you know. But I say words because normally if I'm doing a design or art binding, whatever it is, or artist book, I don't necessarily title the box with, you know, there is a book inside here. I don't normally do that. What I do is I have some decorative element on the spine, which is used for the book or on the book or within the text or something like that, because, you know, at the end of the day, it's not as if somebody's going to have 15 exactly the same. And you've just got to give an indication of what's in the box. It's like, you know, using any language or visual language to give an idea. You know, if it's on a bookcase and it's got something on the spine, it's generally thinking, well, probably a book. And if you're the collector and you own it, you know exactly what's in there. You know, you don't need it. But this time I did go.
So it's one of the more unusual boxes of yours.
Yes, it's relatively simple. Yes.
And what about the book edge? I really like the texture. How do you do that? Was it just painted on?
Can you keep a secret?
It depends.
Mm-hmm. I can.
So if I said yes, you would say, so can I.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's very simple, extraordinarily simple. Obviously, the book is to do any form of edge decoration, not any form. It depends on sort of edge decorating. But if you're just doing, you know, along the edge, none of this fancy stuff with paintings of Dutch ships from the 17th century or anything. But if you're doing something like this, it's, you know, obviously clamped in a press of some description. And then all I did is put a base color down using spray can, you know, graffiti art spray can. And then I got a stencil, which was the, I may just have it, hang on. Yes, here we go. Yeah. Never throw anything out. This is a sort of a tray from a stationery, you know, IKEA stationery thing. And it's got this sort of grid lattice work thing. And I don't know if you can see, but it's got dimples in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I did is I laid that on top of the text book and just sprayed over the top. You can see the color just there. And that gave it that undulation. So it's very, very simple. It's quite a mechanical process. But what I wanted the edge decoration to have was sort of like, you know, again, just zip bright color coming out, you know, like the banners, like the headlines, like the zoom you get in a lot of animations and stuff. So again, I wanted to utilize that. But again, it doesn't have to be complicated. Bit of a stencil happening and you're away. It's not rocket science. It's far more complicated.
So was the presentation this year conducted as usual, or was it a distant thing as the last year? How was it this time?
Oh.
Okay.
Normally, I have a shower and I get a nice shirt on hand tie a bow tie. That takes a long time for me. Hand tie it. Wearing my dinner jacket, still fits. Trousers. You know, I look beautiful. Okay. Go to the Guildhall, all the TV cameras are there. I go to the front door and they say, "Are you with the band? Use the back door." And that has happened before, actually. That has happened before. and so you go in, it's all this, and it's glitz, and it's champagne and fruit juice for the ladies, and it's brilliant. It's lovely, and you're in there, and it's lights, and everybody's it's lovely, and it's for me, it's one of the highlights. Unfortunately, this year, because of COVID, a lot of the authors, they you know, couldn't come to London for various reasons. And so basically normally we have a sort of a 2-hour exhibition where the great public who are invited to the event look at the books, and the authors come by and you meet the author and have your photograph taken, you know, like this, and you're talking with them and everything. That's a really cool do. But this year I had to drop the book off at some house in southwest London. Like this, and I was met by this lady, and she said, "Yes." And I said, "I'm with my book." She said, "Oh, the booker." Took it and closed the door like this. Anyway, and they were all put on display, and they were on the television briefly. So no, I didn't go. I didn't have the opportunity to meet my author, which is a shame. Hopefully things will get back to some sense of normality in the future. So in one way, there wasn't that sort of finality about it, where, you know, you physically give it over, the author gets it, and there wasn't that for me this time. So that was a little bit of a hollow ending, which was a shame. So that's one aspect I do enjoy of the Booker. Yeah, I just hope my dinner jacket will still fit in the future. I'm getting to that age where it's difficult to lose weight. I mean, I know I look very good in camera, but you know, I am actually, I've pushed it all down below camera, so you can't see it. But no, so that was nice. I think it was on BBC News or something. I'm not sure. Unfortunately, I wasn't available to watch it. I couldn't get connection in the pub. Sorry, not the pub. I wasn't in the pub. No, I was at a poetry reading. I was at a poetry reading, and I couldn't get. And obviously, you know, you can't say, "Hang on a sec, I've just got to watch my book." Can't do that. But no. So hopefully, in the future, it'll be back to normal. In the pub.
Yeah. Thank you.
No, it's quite. Well, one or two secrets and disclosures of secrets there. I think you'll find. No, it was good. I think for bookbinding and contemporary bookbinding, the Booker is a great thing to be involved in. You know, you're working with modern contemporary work. You're working with, you know, works that are of now, and you know, it sort of heightens the profile of what we do. I just wish that other organisations did similar things. There are so many literary awards and poetry awards and things like that. And it really does make the book extraordinarily special for the author as well. You know, that somebody has taken 4 or 5 weeks, concentrated time to do something unique with their book, never to be repeated. A unique book, you know, uniquely printed, uniquely bound, a unique interpretation of the text, because we don't actually communicate with the author about what we're doing. And that in itself, that you're under pressure there as well, because, you know, all sorts of things. But so it is a very individual response. And again, you've got that responsibility as a creator, as a creative bookbinder, contemporary creative bookbinder, to work that as well. And it's a great responsibility, but it's a responsibility that I think we all love, that who do the Booker. Yeah, as I'm sure you'll find out, because, you know.
I'm glad you mentioned your experience with the Clockwork Orange and the experience. Well, I never tried to make a binding for a book that was just published. I don't know, this year or a few weeks ago or a few months ago. But it's definitely a different sort of creative process and different sort of challenge because as you mentioned, your project with the Clockwork Orange, you had some ideas before starting your binding process.
Yeah.
And even if that's a book that you haven't read, you probably heard something about it. There may be a movie, so you may have some ideas. You may have some preconceptions already when you start making a binding. But this is tabula rasa. You just have to, you know, dive in and create something out of nothing.
Yeah,
and,
there is. Yeah, there's no existing pool of knowledge that you can dip your toe in. You're on the high board and you're going in, and that's it. You know, and when you hit that water, you hit it with a very big splash. There's no safety nets. There's no fallback. You just do it, and in one way, it's a great discipline as well, because we've all done it. I think, you know, you're doing work for an exhibition and the hand-in date is so and so, and you beg the people who organize it, say, can you just give me a few extra days, please, 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 because they know that they build in little buffer zones. I mean, when I've curated, you build in little buffer zones for people who are just not, you know, just not doing it, you know. And but with these people, there is no buffer zone, there is no extra few days, and so you are under this. It's not a heavy weight, but you are responsible for it. And touch wood, you know, nothing's ever happened to me. But again, this is why we have, you know, somebody standing in the wings just in case, because we've got to do it, as has been proved with me on a couple of occasions. So again, to be chosen as a second is actually quite a, you know, nice thing. And again, it's the responsibility as well of doing it. And I think that when you're working with brand new work, something that's zing, you know, this is it. The first time the book will have been specially bound. You've got to get it right from your perspective. I mean, obviously there are going to be other people that say, "Oh, it's rubbish, just cut out letters, isn't it? Child could do that," sort of thing. Yes, a child can just hold a paintbrush and go like that. It doesn't mean the child is Picasso, though Picasso did want to paint as a child, so that defeats that. Well, you know what I mean. But there is that essence that you've got to get it, and it's not just the design and the artwork; it's the construction of it as well. Yeah, any bookbinder will say, you know, the book has got to physically work, and it doesn't want to fall apart in the person's hands when unless it's designed that way. But with the book, it's not designed to fall apart, and you've got to use the best materials you can for longevity, etc., etc., etc. And you're dealing with a living person's work, and that is very personal to them as well. And again, you've got to, it's impossible to understand somebody, but you've got to understand what's happening in the book. And you've really got to grab that rung on that ladder that you think, oh, right, okay, now I know where I'm going with the design, and I'm going. Whereas with something that is, you know, or should we say, a non-contemporary book, you're right, we do have this luxury of background knowledge, of things that we can dip into. We can ask people, say, oh yeah, you know, you were reading, what did you think of it? Mention it, and all these other things, and you can do that. And, you know, creative people, they're always taking in information, always looking, and it's always being stored somewhere, whether it be in a notebook or at the back of the mind, back of the hand, taking all that in. And there is a sense of luxury of time. We have that luxury where we can sit back and sort of, this no luxury, none of this artistic musing and stuff like that. You're at the coalface, and that's where, passion. You have to have the passion to keep you going forward and doing it, because there are very late nights. There is frustration, there is all of that. But at the end of the day, you've got to do it.
You mentioned that you don't interact with the author in process. Is it a rule, or is it just how it usually happens?
Well, I don't know if it's a rule, but again, I mean, in one way, you're already working with the author. You're working with their work. It is a symbiotic relationship. You are working together. And I don't know if it's a rule, but I don't think it's ever happened. The closest I've ever come to it was, I think, George Saunders' Lincoln in the Bardo, that won a few years ago. And I was posting, stuff up online and saying, this is what I'm doing. Hey, kids, isn't this great? Way. And I got a text from a colleague of mine in the States and said, oh, you're doing George Saunders' Lincoln in the Bardo? I said, yeah, it's a great book, actually. Really difficult to understand in the first reading, but I understood it, when I started again after page 28, started again, multiple voices, multiple angles of the dialogue coming in, and then I understood it, etc., etc. He went, oh, good. He said, George Saunders. I went, yeah, George Saunders. He said, there's a mate of mine. I said, no, is he? He said, in fact, he's a work colleague and his office is 2 doors away from mine. So I'm thinking, so Saunders has probably seen what I'm doing, but you'd never say that. Oh, that's good to know. How fascinating. And he said, and so my colleague said, I'll be delighted to see your book when he gets it and brings it back. And I thought, oh no, this really is pressure now, because it's a professional colleague of mine who is going to be really looking at the book. So again, I can't fudge it. It's got to be right. And I'm thinking, oh no, it's like this. So that's the closest I've ever come to it. But of course, normally at the presentation, at the award ceremony itself, you're talking with the author about the work. So there is a collaboration, but it's a non-meeting collaboration. You collaborate with the text, and that's as close as I've ever come to it personally. I don't know about other people.
Would you like to? It sounds like an interesting experience. I don't mean just having some input from the author because you already have the book, but like a true collaboration, like designing a binding together with the author.
Yeah, I don't know. I have worked with a couple of authors, and I have worked on collaborations in various projects and things. A couple of artists as well come to that. But I don't know if they're asked not to contact us. I'm not sure. I don't know about that. Because I think the onus is on the binder to create something which comes from them, a unique perspective. And if you're in collaboration, you've got to have, the collaboration needs to be equal or needs to be set out in a specific way that you know where you are within that collaborative endeavor. And I think if the author got in touch with me and said, well, I think it would look better in pink, I would say, oh, what shade of pink? And why do you think it would be better? And so you've got to be quite careful when it comes to that sort of thing. But no, I don't know of anybody who's actually been contacted by the author or has contacted the author during the making process. Yeah.
Do you know of any situations when authors presented with the bindings sort of disagreed with the artistic, approach of the binder?
No.
Okay.
Like a bit.
Thank you.
any kind of critique at all?
Well, I'm a professional. I'm not going to. No. of course, there is going to be personal interpretation and different ways of looking at the work. And sometimes, of course, you know, views are perhaps not going to be, shall we say, equal, shall we say. It's never happened to me, to my knowledge. It hasn't happened to me. I'm trying to think. I did hear once that one particular binder was a bit over the top with something, and the author said, "Have you actually read the book?" And so, that's only sort of background hearsay sort of thing. But yes, there is always that chance of it just hitting, you know, instead of getting off the diving pool and splashing into the water and gracefully swimming off, that the water is frozen and you just go boof. There is that, but from my knowledge, it's only one, and that could have been just some, you know, sort of back chat sort of thing. But no, I've no, I haven't. Professionally, I've never heard of it.
I think this is such a positive moment, you know, to finish our bookish talk. And many thanks to you, Mark, for
so always a pleasure. Always
for
a pleasure
this discussion. As usual, we invite our viewers to join the crowd of join our community. You can find the links to our Discord channel, where everything that's important we try to post, and it's a bit more, you know, a refined community than maybe something on Facebook, because there is fewer people there as of now, but, and not as crowded with comments and all that stuff. But you can join, of course, our page. You can follow our page on Facebook. Check our Instagram account, and please check the link to Patreon, because the pledges, the money that come from our patrons on Patreon, help us to cover the expenses on editing of these videos, and well, without their support, we wouldn't be able to produce our podcast at all. Thanks again, Mark. Thanks, Pavel, and see you next time.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much. Bye.